Ashamed of her dress, this black girl's shocking night takes a twist at the Billionaire's dance. The grand ballroom sparkled with a million tiny lights, each one gleaming like a star fallen from the sky. It was a night of opulence, velvet drapes, marble floors, and laughter that rang like music in the air. But there she stood, Zoe, struggling to fit into this world of shimmering excess. The eyes of the social elite pierced through her, dimming the glow of her confidence. Her dress, a second-hand find, felt like a glaring neon sign pointing out her difference, her struggle. She shifted uncomfortably, the fabric itching against her skin, and her stomach twisted in knots. Moments before, she had caught a glimpse of herself in the mirror, a reflection that set her heart racing. The sequins from the other girls' gowns caught the low light, and she wondered if hers would ever be seen amongst such wealth. The whispers swirled around her, mixed with champagne and pretense. Who let her in? One voice gasped, dripping with scorn. Isn't she adorable? Another laughter snickered, thinly veiled compassion masked as kindness. Each word drew tighter and tighter around her like a noose, squeezing the air from her lungs. A sudden hush fell over the crowd. All heads turned, breath caught in unison. The door swung open, revealing the last person anyone expected to see, Julian, the elusive billionaire himself, with a charm so captivating it felt like gravity shifted. The murmurs resumed, this time in awe. Is he really here? He never attends these events. Zoe's heart raced. Before we continue, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. But all those other thoughts vanished as he swept through the ballroom, a wave of electricity trailing behind him. And when he paused, locking eyes with Zoe, everything around her blurred into a distant hum. That gaze made her heart falter. It felt like he saw right through her insecurities to the girl she dreamed of being. Time stilled. Chatter faded. Zoe stood frozen, a deer caught in the headlights of possibility. Would he invite her to dance? Would the crowd's judgment fade as he led her across that polished floor? The moment stretched, her breath quickening with each heartbeat. This could be the turning point, her chance to leap from the shadows into the spotlight. But then the moment shattered. A girl in a dazzling gown bumped into Zoe, sending her crashing to the floor. The world around her erupted into chaos once again, heads turning, sharp gasps echoing. Her cheeks burned with embarrassment. Had she struck a blow against her own destiny? Or was this somehow, impossibly, the start of something new? Zoe hit the floor hard, the marble cold against her skin. The crowd erupted in a cacophony of gasps, murmurs, and laughter that felt like daggers slicing through her thin veil of hope. She could feel their eyes on her, piercing and judgmental, like the spotlight suddenly had shifted to illuminate her humiliation. Get up. Come on. A familiar voice piped in through the chilly air. It was Sabrina, a friend from her volunteer group, rushing through the crowd with wide eyes and a look of fierce determination. Zoe wanted to disappear, but she took a breath, letting Sabrina pull her up. Her heart raced, not just from the fall, but from the swirling emotions crashing against her like waves. Julian still stood there, eyes locked on her. Instead of the pity she expected, his gaze held something deeper, an understanding, perhaps, that made her heart skip. But it was fleeting, lost amidst the sudden chaos. The thrumming music resumed, and with it, laughter echoed around her, mocking the very essence of what she thought this night could be. I'm so sorry, Zoe stammered, brushing off the non-existent dirt from her dress. The sequins sparkled defiantly under the heavy chandelier light. It's just a mix-up. She forced a smile, one that felt thin and fragile. Zoe! You fine? Sabrina whispered, her eyes darting to Julian. You're not gonna believe this, you need to talk to him. Talk to him? Zoe could hardly wrap her mind around the suggestion. It felt like being thrust into a whirlwind, and she was terrified of being swept away. But the thrumming beat of the night pulsed around her, a chance to break free from the shadows, to step into a world glittering with promise. Taking a deep breath, Zoe squared her shoulders and turned toward Julian, whose expression remained unreadable. The fabric of her dress felt tighter than before, her anxiety sharpening every nerve in her body. She glanced around, noticing the smirks and raised eyebrows from the elite. But one lingering look from Julian seemed to dissolve the tension, igniting a flicker of courage. "Hi," she managed, her voice softer than she intended. "Hello," he replied, his calm demeanor contrasting with the storm of emotions inside her. "I didn't expect to see someone like you here tonight. Someone like me." Zoe felt a rush of heat. Was he really about to pity her again? "You know this event is for all kinds of people, not everyone can carry it as you do," he interjected, a hint of a smile playing on his lips. "There is something refreshing about you." Her heart raced. The crowd faded into the background. Maybe this was destiny. Maybe this moment could change everything, the perfect mix of fear and excitement curling around her like smoke. The distant sound of laughter returned as the buzz began again, drowning their words. But Julian stepped closer, lowering his voice. "Why don't we escape this chaos?" "Escape?" Zoe echoed, her pulse quickening. "Yes," he said softly, the confidence in his eyes glinting. "I need to know who you are beyond this." For a heartbeat, Zoe stood there, aware that every eye in the room could either elevate or crush her. Could she take that leap into the unknown? Before she could answer, another figure entered the scene, Renee, the icy socialite known for her ruthless nature. A smirk twisted her lips as she approached, eyes glinting with mischief. "Julian, darling, you shouldn't waste your time on someone like her." Zoe felt the air rush out of her lungs. This was a challenge, an open slap in the face. Would she crumble under the pressure, or rise to protect her moment? Julian's gaze flickered back and forth between her and Renee, tension crackling between them. There was so much at stake in that instant. "Back off, Renee," Julian said firmly, stepping closer to Zoe, shielding her from the scorn. "She's exactly the kind of person worth knowing." Zoe felt a new surge of hope, but also something else. What was going to happen next? As the stares grew heavier and whispers turned sharper, she questioned if this was truly her moment to shine, or the beginning of a battle she was ready to fight. So much could change in an instant, and the night was only just beginning. What if everything she believed was about to crack under pressure? The music pulsed, the tension rose, and with the eyes of the elite upon her, Zoe found herself at a crossroads. Would she step into the light or hide in the shadows? Zoe's breath hitched as Julian's protective stance radiated a warmth that contrasted sharply with Renee's cold contempt. The laughter around her dulled to a low hum, the thrill of the party morphing into a stage where tension bore down upon her like a spotlight. This moment felt monumental, filled with the weight of 1,000 expectations. "Darling, you're seriously going to defend her?" "Kate didn't invite the likes of them to this gathering," Renee sneered, her voice dripping with disdain. Each word felt like a serrated blade aimed straight for Zoe's heart. Zoe's fists tightened at her sides, fighting against the urge to shrink away. Flashes of self-doubt whispered in her ear. Who is she to stand against someone like Renee? But then she caught Julian's gaze again. That magnetic pull brought a flicker of fire to her chest, urging her to stand tall. "Yes, I am," Julian asserted, unwavering in his conviction. "And I'm ashamed I ever thought otherwise." The crowd felt electric with suppressed reactions. Zoe could sense their eager anticipation for a spectacle. Would this confrontation lead to a fight or an armistice? Daring to meet Julian's compelling gaze, she felt their connection deepen. What does that even mean? Renee scoffed, her voice sharper now, like ice scraping on metal. You think she'll fit in with us? You're dreaming, Julian. Julian. The fierceness of her voice took Zoe by surprise. She leaned forward slightly. This isn't worth it. She isn't worth it. Julian's demeanor shifted, tension coiling between them. What are you about? He asked, challenging Renee's put-downs, breaking through the frigid atmosphere. You don't get to decide who is worthy. Zoe could feel the room inhale, the silence pulling her more deeply into the spotlight. She saw whispers exchanged in the periphery, voices of judgment, eyes narrowing and widening. But Julian's presence melted some of the ice around her. She took a brave step forward, as if pushing through invisible barriers. I'm not just some trophy to be judged by you, she said, her voice stronger than she felt. I deserve to be here just as much as you do. The air crackled around them, and with that declaration, something changed. Renee's eyes went wide, a mixture of anger and surprise. You're nothing but a joke. You're out of your depth here. But Zoe straightened her back, a renewed determination rising from within her, fueled by the flickering hope now burning bright. Maybe so? But I'm not going to let anyone tell me who I should be or where I belong. In that moment, a weight lifted and the chatter around them became a distant echo. Julian moved closer to Zoe, a protective barrier against the toxicity radiating from Renee. She felt seen for the first time, not as an outsider, but as someone who could command respect. Let us go, Julian said quietly. His voice wrapped around her, an anchor in a storm. Zoe nodded, still feeling the adrenaline surge in her veins. The two of them turned to walk away, but Renee's biting tone sliced through the air one last time. You think you can just walk away from this? You'll regret it. Zoe paused, glancing back. Regret leaving this chaos? No. I regret ever letting fear hold me back. With that, they slipped away from the thrumming party, entering a dimly lit hallway that felt like a reprieve. They needed to find somewhere more private, somewhere they could breathe without the weight of judgment hovering over them. Where were they headed? Something whispered that this night still held secrets and surprises, waiting just around the corner. As they stepped deeper into the unknown, Zoe realized that their escape was just the beginning. What was waiting out there that could change everything? The hallway felt like a tunnel to nowhere, shadows stretching ominously around them. Zoe's heart raced, adrenaline still coursing through her. She could feel the flicker of excitement building as they moved away from the chaos, but it was mixed with uncertainty. Do you think she'll come after us? Zoe asked, a tinge of fear slipping into her voice. Julian shook his head, his jaw set. Renee always overplays her hand. She thrives on drama. That just makes her weak. Easy for you to say, Zoe replied, feeling something shift inside her. You're not the one she targeted. I'd take that bullet any day for you, he said firmly, catching her gaze. Zoe felt warmth bloom in her chest. It was almost alarming how safe she felt with him. As they walked further, the dim light flickered, casting ghostly shadows on the walls. Suddenly Zoe spotted a door slightly ajar on her right. The muffled sounds of the party spilled in, twisting and turning into muffled chaos. Something drew her closer, a strange fascination, perhaps? A need to confront whatever lurked inside. Wait, she murmured, her curiosity piquing as she approached the door. Zoe, Julian warned, but she wasn't listening. She pushed gently on the door, forcing it to swing open. The room was empty, save for a few scattered chairs and a long table, littered with abandoned drinks and half-eaten hors d'oeuvres. Dim lights hung low, giving the space a secretive, intimate feeling. Looks like a break room, Zoe commented, stepping inside, heart pounding with a mix of eagerness and trepidation. Maybe we can find a way out through here? Just as Julian stepped in behind her, the door slammed shut, sending an echoing thud that reverberated off the walls. What the hell? Julian gripped the handle, yanking on it, but it wouldn't budge. The tension snapped tight between them as they exchanged worried glances. Julian, Zoe whispered, fear creeping into her tone. What if we're trapped? Stay calm, he replied, fierce determination flashing in his eyes. We'll figure this out. But as he turned away from the door, Zoe caught movement near the window through the haze of shadows. There, framed in a beam of light, was a figure, face obscured but body unmistakably familiar. It can't be. Zoe's voice trailed off as she squinted through the darkness. Renee leaned against the wall with an unnerving grin, eyes glinting like shards of glass. Surprise! You thought you could escape that easily? Renee, let us out! Julian shouted, anger surging through him. But Renee only chuckled, tilting her head as if entertained by their desperation. Oh, sweet Julian, you're such a hero. But I didn't come here to chat. Her tone shifted, turning icy. This is a lesson. You both need to know your place. Zoe felt trapped, her heart racing as panic bubbled within her. Could it be? Was she really beneath this person's contempt? Did she truly not belong? What do you want from us? Zoe finally asked, her voice breaking, fury and fear swirling inside. Just a little fun and a reckoning. This is your moment, Zoe. Show me what you're really made of, she taunted, stepping closer, trapping them in her gaze. The air crackled with tension. They were no longer just confronting jealousy and cruelty, but a game that would test their resolve. Let us see if you're truly fearless or just another punchline, Renee hissed, her laughter bouncing off the walls, slicing through the air like a dagger. Zoe couldn't hold back the fury bubbling within her. This was more than a party. It was about facing demons, probing herself. And this was just the beginning. As darkness loomed and the shadows twisted, one question echoed louder than the others. Would she find strength in the chaos or succumb to the fear that haunted her? The laughter hung in the air like a heavy fog, stifling yet intoxicating. Zoe felt it clawing at the edges of her mind, trying to drown out her thoughts. Could she really face Renee? Or would this turn into another of the dark games the other girl relished? Stay away from her, Julian shouted, stepping in front of Zoe, an insistent wall, fierce and protective. Zoe tried to gauge Renee's expression as the flickering light momentarily illuminated her face, but the shadows danced too swiftly around her, hiding her true intentions. Oh, look at the brave knight! Renee mocked, her voice dripping with venom. But doesn't he realize that heroes often become the tragic tales, don't they? How poetic. Zoe felt a chill run down her spine. She didn't want Julian to be pulled into this twisted fantasy of Renee's. He was right. There was power in the so-called weakness of her heart. She clenched her fists. She had to show that she wouldn't back down now, not when it mattered most. Renee, she said, her voice steadier than she felt, whatever you think is going to happen here, you're wrong. Renee's grin widened, another cruel laugh escaping her lips. Oh, but my dear, I'm just getting started. Don't you want to play my little game? Zoe glanced at the space around her. A table stood nearby, paper strewn about with empty glasses. She wondered what could give them an upper hand. This isn't a game, Zoe shouted, fury and fear clashing within her. You think you can just toy with us, but you're wrong. For a moment, Renee's gaze softened, as if she wasn't the monster Zoe pictured. Then it morphed back into a smirk. You've got guts. I'll give you that. But guts don't win this game. Renee stepped forward, peering into Zoe's eyes with a predatory intensity. Let us raise the stakes, shall we? How about a little chance to save your precious Julian? What do you mean? Julian snapped, doubt flooding his expression. The tension thickened, punctuated by their shared breathing. You see, Renee continued, her voice lowering conspiratorially, I have a lovely little secret stashed away in this house. Securing it requires two. You both want to escape? Then you better work together, or you might not get out at all. What secret? Zoe demanded, her heart racing. She knew she was playing right into her traps. Renee laughed softly, a chilling sound. Aw, you're not just clever, but curious too. It's all so delicious. Zoe's thoughts raced. The room felt like it was closing in on them, shadows shifting nervously, reflecting how she felt within. The challenge flickered between them like a match getting ready to ignite. We'll do whatever it takes, Zoe replied through tremors of anxiety, swallowing hard. Smart girl, Renee said, eyes narrowing. But be careful what you wish for. The stillness in the room settled heavily, an uneasy truce simmering in the air among them. Zoe's resolve began to waver. She could sense the unseen threads of fear and desperation tightening around them. Simultaneously, she felt the rush of rebellion igniting within her. Let us find it, Julian, she urged. Whatever Renee wants from us, we'll confront it head-on. We can't back down. Still, in her mind, doubt spiraled. Could they really rise up against Renee's mind games? Okay, Julian nodded, agreeing with a fire in his eyes. We'll find the secret. Renee's laughter echoed, low and ominous as shadows danced right past them. Then let the hunt begin, she taunted, her voice trailing off like dark smoke, and as silence enveloped them, Zoe's heart thudded heavily in her chest. What lay ahead was uncertain. Could they risk everything to escape, or would they face something far worse? With every corner turned and room searched, Zoe couldn't shake the feeling that they were not only hunting for secrets, but also for survival. As they began their quest through the shifting darkness, a new question loomed with dreadful certainty. In the game of trust and betrayal, who could they truly rely on? Fear wrapped tightly around Zoe, like the suffocating shadows of the room. Every corner seemed to harbor secrets, the dim light casting eerie shapes that twisted her sense of reality. She stole a glance at Julian, his jaw set, determination flickering in his eyes, but a thin sheen of worry lingered beneath. Where do we start? Julian asked, the urgency in his voice cutting through the gloom. Zoe scanned their surroundings. The room was filled with discarded furniture and layers of dust. Old portraits stared down at them, their eyes haunting. What had Renee hidden? Her mind raced with possibilities, a cacophony of dread and hope spinning tirelessly within. The atmosphere felt electric as they took a hesitant step deeper into the house's belly. With each creak of the floorboards, Zoe felt her heart stutter. We should check that way. She pointed toward a hallway, barely lit, leading to an ominous wooden door. The air felt heavier there, pregnant with the anticipation of dread. Let us do it, Julian replied, his voice subdued but resolute. They moved together, hands brushing slightly, a shared pulse of courage as they approached the door. Zoe reached out, her fingers trembling as they wrapped around the cold, tarnished doorknob. It turned smoothly, surprisingly unresistant. Yet, the moment she pushed the door open, it creaked loudly, an ominous warning. The room beyond was dark, but faint moonlight filtered in through a dusty window, revealing shelves crammed with dusty boxes and covered furniture. We need to be careful, Julian whispered, stepping inside cautiously. Each sound echoed around them, heightening the intensity the ticking of an old clock, distant murmurs of wind outside, as if the house itself was breathing. As they searched through the disorganized stacks, Zoe felt something off. A strange pull tugged at her instincts. She opened a box marked with a faded label. Secrets! Her heart raced, hope colliding with trepidation. But before she could pry deeper, Julian's voice broke the tension. Zoe, look! He pointed to a small journal lying on a nearby table, its leather cover cracked and worn. Zoe's hand shook as she approached it, the weight of possibility thick in the air. She opened it, scanning the pages filled with spidery handwriting. The first entry was dated weeks before their arrival. "The key to freedom lies within her grasp," she read aloud, the words reverberating in her ears like a drumbeat. "What does that mean?" "Maybe it's a clue," Julian replied, leaning closer. "Look!" He flipped through the pages, revealing cryptic symbols and sketches. Suddenly Zoe froze. Sketched on one page was the very symbol they had seen on the wall earlier, a twisted, interlocking spiral that seemed to pulse with energy. "What if this is it?" she murmured, pieces of a puzzle sliding into place. Before they could analyze further, a low whisper slithered through the air. "Ah, I see you've found the journal," Renee's voice echoed from the shadows, smooth yet taunting, sending chills racing down Zoe's spine. "But don't you think you'll need more than wishes and dreams to uncover the truth?" The shadows shifted as Renee emerged, her eyes glinting, revealing nothing but calculated malice. "You dared to tread here without realizing the consequences?" Zoe's pulse quickened. "What do you want from us, Renee?" Renee stepped forward, a predator closing in on its prey. "To find the true secret, you'll have to sacrifice more than you're willing to give." "The true secret?" Julian interjected, even as fear flickered in his gaze. "What does that mean?" Renee smiled, a chilling expression that tightened the air. "Oh, you'll find out soon enough. But I recommend you hurry. Time is not on your side." With that, she vanished back into the shadows, laughter echoing through the corridors, filling the space with a grotesque symphony of dread. Zoe felt ice coil around her heart. They had crossed a line, and the only way out was deeper into the labyrinth of secrets. "What now?" Julian asked, his voice barely above a whisper, fear punctuating the silence. Zoe's mind raced. They were in a nightmare, woven in a complex game filled with dangers thicker than the darkness surrounding them. They had to find the key before it was too late. But what if the real secret put them at a crossroad of betrayal? "Let us keep going," Zoe breathed, her voice steadying. "We're not finished yet." And as they stepped further into the unknown, dread hummed like a storm cloud over them. They needed to uncover the truth. But would it set them free or lead to their doom? The air was thick with tension as Zoe and Julian ventured deeper into the shadows of the house. Each step felt heavy, as if the very floorboards beneath them whispered warnings, trying to push them back. The journal, heavy in Zoe's hands, burned with potential of promise wrapped tightly in uncertainty. "What do you think she meant by sacrifice?" Julian asked, glancing around nervously, the weight of Renee's words hanging between them. The anticipation was palpable, a drumbeat in her ears. "I don't know," Zoe replied, her throat dry. "But we can't let fear dictate our next move." They moved cautiously around the room, the faint glow of moonlight illuminating their path. A sense of dread pressed against them, and the eerie silence of the house only heightened their nerves. Zoe's eyes darted to the boxes piled haphazardly around the room, a mess of forgotten memories concealed beneath layers of dust. "What if this is a trap?" Julian said, the strain in his voice evident. "What if we're not supposed to be here?" A shiver coursed through Zoe. The journal had opened a door, and she feared the cost of stepping through it. "We need to focus. There has to be something more here," she urged, eyes scanning for hidden clues. As they rifled through stacks of dusty items, Zoe's fingers brushed against something cold and metallic. She pulled it from the depths, a key, old and ornate with swirling designs that echoed the symbol from the journal. Her breath caught in her throat. "Look! This might be it." Julian's gaze locked onto the key, curiosity flickering in his eyes. "What does it unlock? You think it leads us closer to the truth?" Before Zoe could respond, a sudden crash echoed down the hallway, making both of them jump. They exchanged a glance, and she felt her heart thunder in her chest. The noise came again, loud and insistent, and despair clawed at her thoughts. "Renee?" Julian called, his voice quaking slightly. They stood frozen for a moment, the space around them thick with fear. But there was no answer, just an unsettling silence interrupted by the creepy sound of an old clock ticking. Zoe's instinct screamed that they weren't alone, that something else was watching, waiting. A loud thud ricocheted through the house. Without thinking, Zoe gripped the key tightly, her fingers a steadying force against rising panic. "We need to check it out," she said, voice low as if trying to shield herself from whatever lurked close by. Julian hesitated. What if it's her? Zoe could feel the weight of his concern. Then we need to confront her. If this is a game, we can't play it alone. She felt the snapping tension between them, fear clashing with resolve. With a firm nod, they stepped toward the hallway, hearts drumming like a war cry. The dim light flickered ominously as they crept forward, the oppressive dark looming ahead. As they reached the end of the hall, another crash echoed, this time louder, more menacing. It was coming from a nearby door, slightly ajar. Zoe felt as if her heart was being squeezed in a vice grip, but she pushed that fear down. "Stay close," she whispered, feeling Julian's presence solid behind her. They approached the door, its hinges creaking in protest as Zoe slowly pushed it open. What they found inside shook them to their core. The room was adorned with disturbing art pieces that depicted chaos, twisted faces, contorted bodies frozen in horror. In the center, an ornate mirror stood, reflecting the faint light back at them like a beacon. "Is that?" Julian began, eyes wide. "The other side?" Zoe finished breathlessly. The mirror didn't just reflect them. It seemed alive, swirling with dark energy. Glimmers of something unfathomable flickered beneath the glass. Suddenly, an icy breeze snaked through the room, sending chills down her spine. "Zoe, I think we should." Julian's voice broke off, swallowed by a deafening crack as the mirror pulsed, casting a blinding flash. In an instant, everything changed. The air crackled around them, pulling them closer to the mirror's shimmering surface. In that moment, Zoe realized they had crossed a threshold. They could either harness this powerful energy or succumb to the forces threatening to consume them. The choice hung in the air like a heavy weight: freedom or danger? Zoe's breath quickened, and her heart raced in anticipation. "What if this truly is it?" she murmured. But before either could react, a shadow erupted from the mirror's depths, dark and shapeless, rushing toward them with blistering speed. "Run!" Zoe shouted, newfound strength propelling them backward as they hurtled down the hall, the very essence of danger nipping at their heels. They had dove headfirst into chaos, but in the depths of fear, a question emerged. What awaited them on the other side? They stumbled through the darkness, heartbeats thundering in sync as they raced away from the mirror's ominous pull. Zoe's mind raced. What had they unleashed? Desperation clawed at her throat, and she felt Julian's grip tighten on her wrist, anchoring her against the chaos. "Where do we go?" he gasped, eyes wide with terror, echoing the wild panic that surged through her. Behind them, the darkness writhed as if it were alive, stretching and converging toward the doorway. "Anywhere but here!" Zoe shouted, her instincts screaming for her to move. They rounded a corner, hearts pounding, and burst into a small room cluttered with disheveled furniture. A stark face of an old woman peered down from a faded portrait on the wall, her expression frozen in time, a witness to the terror unfolding. Julian's breath hitched. What if the key opened something? Zoe finished for him. A flicker of hope ignited. Clutching the key, she darted for a small desk tucked in the far corner, its surface littered with forgotten trinkets, dust dancing in the air like lost souls. She rummaged through drawers, powered by adrenaline mingling with urgency. "Ow!" she explained, her fingers snagging on a sharp edge. Ignoring the sting, she yanked open a drawer where a silver box lay half buried. Zoe, Julian warned, glancing nervously over his shoulder. Hurry! With a swift motion, Zoe lifted the box, its lock shimmering as if it recognized the key she held. She pressed it against the mechanism, her heart pounding like a drum in her ears. A soft click echoed, and she froze, breath hitching in her throat. You did it! Julian exclaimed, hope etched in his voice. The lid creaked open, revealing an ancient, leather-bound book nestled inside, its pages yellowed with age. Her fingers trembled as she flipped it open. The words jumped out at her: incantations and rituals, sketches of the mirror, and symbols of protection. A chill crept up her spine as she read the warnings, the sacrifices foretold. There's a chance, Zoe whispered, eyes wide. If we use this, we might be able to nullify the mirror's hold. But what does it want from us? Julian said, glancing nervously at the door, as the ominous energy pressed against it like a suffocating fog. Before she could respond, a loud crash reverberated through the room, causing her to jump. The door shattered into splinters, as the shadow burst through with unnatural speed. It coiled around them, a dark blur that seemed to inhale the light, moving faster than thought. Now! Zoe shouted, as fear surged once more. She could feel the shadows thrumming, insatiable. As she began to recite the words from the book, a guttural roar filled the room, drowning out her voice. The ground trembled beneath them, and the dark mass began to morph, flashing glimpses of the faces of people lost to it, anguished and pleading. Her breath caught in her throat. Who were they? What did it want? The words spilled out in a frenzy, as she fought to bind the chaos, sweat beading on her brow. Dark tendrils lunged toward her, zipping inches from her skin, and she could feel the icy breath of fear brushing against her neck. Zoe, it won't work! Julian shouted, panic thick in his voice. We need to find the source. We can't give up! She screamed back, adrenaline surging. But with every word she uttered, it seemed the dark creature grew stronger, swirling in a vortex, siphoning their energy. Zoe's heart sank, as she feared they had awoken a force far beyond their understanding. Zoe! Look! Julian pointed, and she turned to see the ornate mirror vibrating, the images swirling fast and wild. It's all connected, he yelled. Her heart raced at the realization. Could the key unlock the mirror as well? Was that the link they needed? They couldn't turn back now. Gripping the book tightly, she locked eyes with Julian, determination igniting their fears with purpose. Together they sprinted toward the mirror, the darkness roiling behind them, a predator hungering for their resolve. This was it. They had to face the mirror, or it would consume them. As Zoe stood before the shimmering surface, she felt the shadows clawing her back, desperate to drag her into the depths. But the answer was right there, waiting to be claimed. Would she find the strength to face the past? Would they survive the wrath of the darkness? And in that moment, with the world hanging in the balance, Zoe plunged forward, the mirror stretching, opening as if to swallow them whole. What awaited them, their truth or doom? The moment Zoe entered the mirror, everything around her twisted like a kaleidoscope of colors and shapes. She felt the pull of an unseen force, yanking her and Julian through a whirlwind of memories, some hers, some entirely foreign. Images flashed by in a chaotic blur, happy faces, shadowy figures, the bitter grimace of loss. It was overwhelming, a cacophony of sights and sounds blending with the disorienting weight of dread. Zoe! Julian's voice cut through the chaos, grounding her. She felt his hand clasped tightly in hers, a fragile lifeline in this surreal tempest. As they cleared the final tumult, they landed hard on a cold, tiled floor, gasping for breath. They were in a dimly lit room that felt heavy with history. The air was thick and suffocating, mingling dust motes with the smell of decay. A giant mirror loomed before them, larger than they'd ever seen, its frame intricate with swirling patterns that seemed to breathe. Writing scrawled along the edges, glinting as if attempting to whisper secrets long forgotten. Where are we?" Julian murmured, still trying to catch his breath. "I don't know," Zoe replied, her gaze fixed on the mirror. "But we need to find a way to control it, or it could take us for good." Suddenly, the room vibrated with a deep hum. The mirror pulsed, showing disturbing images of twisted versions of themselves, haunted faces distorted by despair and desperation. Fear gripped Zoe's heart as she realized the mirror was showing them what could happen if they failed. "They're us," she stammered, pointing at the glimmering surface. "If we don't act, this is what we'll become." Julian moved closer to the mirror, peering into its depths. "We have to break its hold. Maybe the spells can guide us." The leather-bound book felt warm in Zoe's hands, reassuring amidst the chaos. She flipped frantically through the pages, searching for anything that could reverse the mirror's dark magic. The thrum of the room grew stronger, echoing their heartbeat, as if the very walls were alive, hungry for their despair. Fingers racing across the rough pages, she stumbled upon a ritual. Her throat tightened as she read the words aloud. "To cut the ties that bind, to summon strength from sacrifice, and face the dark that lingers behind." "Sacrifice? What does that mean?" Julian asked, his voice laced with concern. Zoe hesitated, heart rate soaring. "I think it means we have to face what we fear most, or offer something we hold dear." The mirror's surface flickered, an eerie shadow forming within, pulling at her mind as it tried to coax them into surrender. "Zoe, don't!" Julian warned, stepping back. "We can't give in. We must fight." But the darkness surged, a tangible weight pressing down on them. Zoe's fear twisted, morphing into dread. She thought of her family, of choices that had haunted her, regrets she had never fully faced. The shadows whispered her vulnerability, promising her they would help if only she relinquished her grip on those memories. "Zoe!" Julian cried, struggling against the grip of swirling shadows that began to tighten around her. She looked at him, his face a mask of determination, and realized that any sacrifice she made could also claim him. "Stay close," she shouted, grasping the book tighter. "We can do this." As she recited the last incantation, an electrical pulse surged through the room. Light poured from the mirror, its brilliance battling the encroaching shadows. But the mirror didn't relent. It twisted again, the reflections of themselves taking on a life of their own, reaching out, pulling them in. "We are strong. We won't let you take us," Zoe yelled, her voice ringing with defiance. "Focus!" Julian shouted, adrenaline racing through him. In that moment, Zoe felt a deep resolve burning inside her. "You're not us. You're a lie." The words pierced the darkness, causing a ripple of unease in the shadowy forms that surrounded them. Yet, just as victory seemed within their grasp, a chilling voice seeped through the fabric of the mirror, taunting them. "You cannot sever the bond. You need each other. Embrace the darkness or lose everything." Tension crackled in the air, thick with uncertainty. The mirror erupted into a blinding radiance, threatening to swallow them whole once more. Zoe realized the true test had just begun. Could they truly sever the ties that bound them? Or would the mirror devour not only their souls, but everything they held dear? As the blinding light enveloped them, Zoe's hand tightened around Julian's, their fate uncertain, teetering on the edge of hope and terror. What awaited them in the heart of that glowing abyss? The blinding light enveloped Zoe and Julian, the warmth seeping deep into their souls, curling around them like a protective embrace. But while the light felt safe, it echoed with uncertainty. As they held hands tightly, there was no turning back. They were dancers on the razor's edge, and the stakes had never felt higher. Suddenly, the chaotic whirlwind quieted, and they found themselves standing on solid ground again, but not in the dim room of shadows. This was a place defined by hope. Vibrant colors erupted around them, reflecting the full spectrum of human emotion: laughter, joy, pain, and love, swirling together in a carnival of life. It was a floating world, full of ethereal glows against a backdrop of familiar nightmares, the mirrored figures lurking in the corners like half-forgotten memories. "Is this a dream?" Julian whispered, a spark of wonder igniting in his eyes. "Are we free?" Zoe looked around, heart pounding. "It feels different. I think we're in a reality we can shape." In the distance, she caught glimpses of their old fears whispering back to them. Yet here, the grip of despair was less potent. The memories of failure and insecurity felt more like shades of clouds, floating but not truly tethered. Together, they moved through this vibrant landscape, taking tentative steps. Each footfall became a declaration of bravery, each smile a silent promise against the past. Zoe filled her lungs with deep breaths, attempting to shut out the edges of darkness that still threatened to invade. "We need to find a way to confront the shadows," she noted, her voice steady with conviction. Then came the shimmer of brilliance, a doorway of light beckoning them forth. Zoe felt an almost magnetic pull towards it. "Let us go," she urged. They ran, hand in hand, as laughter reverberated, awash in euphoria. But the shadows began to creep closer again, their haunting figures bubbling to the surface. The twisted reflections formed around them, embodying every doubt and fear they'd ever known. The laughter soured, turning bitter as the night before flooded back with its mocking tones. Renee's figure emerged from the darkness, her grin sharp, eyes flashing with malice. "You think you can escape? You belong to the shadows, Zoe." Zoe swallowed hard. The tone of derision ignited something deep within her, the realization that Renee was their internalized fear given form. "No," she declared, her teeth grit with determination. "You don't define me." "What? You think you can simply ignore what's within?" Renee sneered back, the shadows behind her dancing and flickering as thought they were alive. "You need fear. It feeds you." "Fear isn't the only option," Julian countered, stepping protectively closer to Zoe. "We face darkness not with despair, but with light and courage." Zoe could feel the simmering energy between them, vibrating like a heartbeat. "We choose to create our own paths. Not you," Zoe shouted, conviction resonating in her voice. With each affirmation from both Julian and Zoe, the colorful world began to brighten. The figures cast by Renee faded slowly, losing strength. Zoe focused, recalling all the beautiful moments layered in her heart, the laughter with her family, the fleeting joy of small victories, and the love she felt growing amid adversity. "I am here. I am enough," she declared, channeling her essence into the space around them. Together, they began to move forward, intertwining their fingers tightly. The brightness morphed into a powerful shield, breaking through the grasping shadows. With every step, they illuminated the darkness, which shrieked in agony. "No! What are you doing?" Renee howled, as the colorful brilliance intensified. "Embracing who we are," Zoe replied, stepping past fear. The figure of Renee blinked, stepping back as shadows retreated under the weight of light. At that moment, Zoe grasped the journal tightly. "We control our destiny. You will not bind us again." With one final surge of strength, they reached for the doorway, propelled by courage and love. Upon crossing into the threshold, they felt a rush of clarity. Time seemed to collide, merging past and future into a single vivid stream, liberating them from the bondage of fear. They stepped out of the mirror into the grand ballroom again, but this time the air felt lighter, infused with possibility. The laughter rang true and bright, no longer tinged with contempt. A wave of relief washed over Zoe. She turned, searching for Julian. "We did it!" she breathed, joy bubbling in her chest. He smiled back, and in that moment, their connection felt stronger than it ever had. Together, they walked through the crowd, now key players in their own story rather than mere spectators. Renee's shadow lingered at the edge of the ballroom, but lost its grip, fading like smoke in daylight. "You can't hide from who you are?" she shouted one last time, but this time her venom simply bounced off. "Yes, we can," Zoe called back. "And we will." As the music swelled around them, they joined the dance of lights and laughter, casting off every angel of discord that once whispered doubt. This was their moment of bright dawn breaking through the dark night. With every move, Zoe felt renewed, grounded, and free. Julian's hand in hers became a tether, solid and real. They stepped boldly into this beautiful new chapter, ready to embrace whatever came next. As the night unfurled into possibilities, Zoe imagined the secrets waiting to be explored in full light, no longer hiding in shadows. They had taken their stand and emerged victorious. And for those still in darkness, facing their own Renees, Zoe shouted a call across time and space. Stand strong. You too can find your way out. Don't let fear trap you in darkness. We are more than our shadows. Now, let us wrap this moment into our lives. You need to subscribe now. Don't wait even one more second to share this journey with your friends. Smash that like button to show your support for these stories. And please, flood the comments below with your thoughts, reactions, and theories about Zoe and Julian's epic stand. This is the moment to lift the voices of those who dare to fight for their light.